Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I'm going to be building an Ork Barricade out of little bits of this and little bits of that. I just had a lot of sprues lying around, like, most of us probably do, and I decided that instead of throwing them out, I would use them as the basis for an Ork Barricade. And as you notice, I haven't done a lot of work on them, so they still look really rough. And usually if you see people using sprues for building terrain and stuff, it takes ages to clean them up. And I just decided this was a quick project, something I just wanted to do for a bit of fun, to just, do something different just for a couple of hours or so. So I didn't want to deal with the whole cleaning up the sprues, so I just went with them the way they were and thought, well, it's for orcs, right? It doesn't really matter. So with all these sprues, I just made sort of like a frame that I want to put bits and pieces on later on, and then I decided to make 3 sort of supports that would make it stand upright on its own and hopefully be relatively stable. So that's just what I did, and I did not make any detailed planning or anything. I just sort of went with the amount of sprues I wanted to cut out, and then see where that took me. So it was really just an unplanned project that I did relatively late one night, just because I felt like it. And honestly, sometimes you just gotta do a hobby project because it's something that feels fun and is perhaps a change of pace from what you are otherwise working on. So I was pretty happy with the way this looked. I thought this would be cool. And then I grabbed some plastic card. I have different textures. Some of it is just plain like this, and then some of this got like a diamond pattern on it, and some is like got these tiny grooves. And I just cut it out in irregular shapes, just any sort of shape I felt would be fun and relatively orky. And then I just glued them all in place using a bit of super glue. I tried using plastic glue first, but that did not work. I don't think plastic card works really well with the plastic glue. So I ended up using super glue. And I just glued these pieces on any way I thought would look kind of fun or irregular. And I really needed the whole thing to look like it was just slapped together by orcs. So nothing about aesthetics at all. I also, as you can see, used a bit of corrugated cardboard, again to give a bit of variety in texture. I didn't want to use too much because then I felt it would be too fragile. I also have a little bit of a mesh that I use, and I try to scrunch it up a little bit so that it looks like this has been used and reused a number of times. And this is also a barricade, so it shouldn't look like it's too new and shiny. It should look really battered, I think. Once I was happy with the basic layout of the plastic card and the cardboard, I put the supports in place. And I just glued them on using some super glue and some super glue activator. I know that the activator is, it's almost like cheating. I could just wait, but I'm not very patient. And as I said, I was looking to make this a sort of nice quick project that I could just do in an evening. I ended up not being able to do that because paint and stuff had to dry, but still, it was just something I wanted to slap together relatively quick and see where that took me. Next up, I get out my rivets, and I have these from a silicone mold from a Green Stuff World, where they actually have a dedicated rivets mold you can buy, which I did. And I want a whole bunch of rivets because, this is after all an orky build, so you need tons and tons of rivets. You can make them in all sorts of ways, but this is just a nice and easy way to do rivets with different sort of textures, which I really like. Next up, I start gluing them in place, and I just use every single rivet I got because, why not? You can never have too many rivets, and not on an orky building project, at least I think. So I just glued as many in place as I could, and as you can see, it's a tiny bit fiddly because, with the super glue, and sometimes they'll stick to your fingers, but it's not a big deal. I thought the whole thing looked a little bit too clean. Some of the edges were very sharp and very straight, and that did not really match the orc aesthetic. So I tried, cutting off some edges and scrunching it up a little bit, just to make sure again that it looks nice and orky once it's done. Then I got out my bits box and decided to add a nice orc skull and some glyphs and just, random pieces from orc kits that I had lying around. My goal was just to add a bit of visual interest to this relatively simple build. I mean, if it's just a bunch of cardboard and a little bit of plastic card and there's nothing much that catches the eye, it quickly ends up just being boring, which I did not want. And this is still, I mean, easy and quick and something I could just sort of slap on and with no greater plan or anything in mind. Just, you know, where do I think this looks cool? And then I just put it in place. Very quick and easy. When I was happy with the way the barricade looked, I went outside and sprayed it first with a black primer and then with a silver one, just to give it, it's not like it's a zenithal highlight, but sort of a little bit. And then I go over and painted some of the corrugated cardboard I paint using the Blood Angels Red, one of the contrast paints, and another thing I paint using the Talazar Blue, also another contrast paint. The contrast paints are relatively translucent, which means that you can still see the metallic shine through, which I think works well for something that's supposed to look like old rusty metal. Other bits I paint using coppery colors or silver colors, just to make it stand a little bit out from each other and again add some visual interest. Next up, I start adding some weathering effects. I am particularly fond of Vallejo's weathering effects. I used both their rust texture and they also have some engine grease and stuff. I also use the old favorite Nolan oil on other parts of the model. I then decide that I want to paint the big orc skull in a nice bronze color, just to sort of set it apart a little bit from the rest of the barricade. I don't want it to stick out at you like really, really bright, but still look a little bit different from the rest. Then I go over a large part of the model using Typhus Corrosion from Citadel. And I mean, sometimes people will say, you know, less is more, especially when it comes to effect paints, but I don't care, not in this instance. This is orky and it needs to be really, really rusty. The copper and bronze bits then gets a wash of the Cryptek armor shade. I mean, I want the orc skull to stand out apart from the rest of the model, but I also wanted it to look nice and weathered at the same time. I then do a quick dry brushing of all the rusty bits using Riser Rust, that nice thick orange color from Citadel. And I just go over the whole thing a couple of times to make sure that I don't miss any spots, and also just to build up the layers of paint. This is gonna be a real nice, grungy, dark, rusty piece of terrain. I also add some lilac oxide to the bronze colors, and then I get out my box of skulls from Citadel and just grab a whole bunch so that I can glue them onto the barricade. I mean, what's an orc build without a whole bunch of skulls, right? I think this again is an instant of the more the merrier. So the more skulls you can get on a build such as this, the better I think it is. I just primed the whole sprue with the skulls with the Wraithbone spray. I mean, usually I don't really care for priming on the sprues, but I think these are sort of like add-ons to bases or to terrain projects and stuff. So I am not too careful about them, and I just think, I mean, it's nice and quick, and then you have got like 40 skulls basically ready to go. I then give them a quick layer of the Skeleton Horde's contrast paint. This contrast paint is just ideal for stuff like this, which of course it was also made for. But it's just really nice and quick to go over the whole thing and get them this layer of paint. Lastly, I have this nice dark chain that I want to wrap around the whole structure. I mean, skulls and chains, what's not to love, especially for an orc build. And then I decide that the barricade is done. I think it's a nice, fun, orky project that I can use on any sort of 40k tabletop. I mean, it'll work especially well if I'm actually fielding my orcs. But the orcs have been, I mean, pretty much everywhere in the 40k universe, so I don't think it's out of place on most tabletops. So that was what I wanted to show you today. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. And you're also more than welcome, of course, to leave a comment. Remember, you can also follow me as Dice and Demons on Twitter and on Instagram. And you are also welcome to join us on the Dice and Demons showroom on Facebook, where you can show off your own models and your own terrain projects. So thank you so much for watching this one. I'll hope to see you next time. Bye!